And go.
That's great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the Orangeville Police Services Board. So on the line, we have the board for the police board, for the Orangeville Police Board. We have Leah Guilfoy, the Deputy Chief, and we have our Treasurer, Nandini. Welcome. So we are in the public session, and we are on 6.1, which is the accounts and financial statements. So Nandini, I'm just going to carry it over to you. And as a note to everyone, if you're watching online, the board did get the financials this morning. So some, and yours truly would be one of them, I gave a top line perusal to it, but I admittedly did not get the chance to go through it in the detail that I would have normally because of the timeline. But I think we can chalk it all up to we're learning with this new environment that we're in because of COVID. So I guess give us a little bit of a grain of salt here as we go through this financial exercise. So Nandini, I'll hand it over to you if that's all right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the chair to the board. So I will attempt to share my screen. Just give me a minute or two. And if Mr. Chair would verbally confirm whether he can see my screen right now.
I can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the financial statements before you are as of April 30th, 2020. We are in May. So before I start presenting, I just want to quickly mention that due to COVID-19, most businesses, including us, most organizations, I should say, we are experiencing delays in terms of receiving invoices, processing invoices, and so on and so forth. So even in the month of May, we are still paying invoices from April. So as we go through today's number, although the statement says as of April 30th, 2020, there may be outstanding expenses or revenues that are yet to be realized. With that being said, just a quick overview of what we're looking at. So as you can see where I'm moving my cursors. So the first column essentially shows 2019 year to date at this time. This particular column shows April 2020 year to date actual. The third column shows April 2020 year to date budget. The next column shows variance in terms of dollar. Then we look at variance in terms of percentage, approved budget, and budget remaining. That being said, if the board would allow me, I would actually like to go to the very bottom of this report because I usually start with the bottom line and then work myself up. So if you look at the bottom line, right now, OPS budget is trending at a very favorable variance of 12.8%. In other words, the budget is coming in under a little over $384,000. So some of the key drivers that I have, I should have some notes here. So some of the key drivers that we're looking at are salary or wage gap measures. So I believe due to various vacancies in at least three sections, we are looking at some wage gap dollars. And that attributes to almost 80% of that variance that we saw, of that 384,000. We also saw higher than expected revenue coming through the records check revenue stream. Just bear with me for a second. I believe that's about 79,000 higher. So there it is. So we were expecting to bring in we brought in about 79,000. Just bear with me for a second. I think I'm okay. So we were expecting to bring in 102,000 in April 2020. We brought in a little over 22,000. So there is a bit of a variance of 79 that attributes to the overall 384. So if I have to sum it up, the key variance drivers are essentially wage gap due to vacancies in three different areas: uniform officers, civilian, and communication. And I can have the deputy chief speak to that further, and as well as the variance in revenue when it comes to cost recovery from record check. That being said, if the board or the board chair has any specific question regarding, and I appreciate that you just received this financial as of this morning, but if you have any specific question, I would be more than happy to answer those.
I've got a question. Nandini, can you go back to the record checks line for a sec?
Sure.
It's Sandy. So you got a reduction in revenue of 79,000. Are you not showing it there as a positive number? You've got it bracketed just the same as the other ones. Wouldn't that be a positive?
So,
was this the revised budget, Nandini, like post when we found out the record check volume wouldn't come as we thought, and then we revised the budget so it was down, and then it was finished down versus the down kind of thing? Is that what you're saying?
But this is actuals. This is actuals, right?
Yeah.
But it's a negative, right? So so it doesn't make sense there. You've got the projected 102,000, an actual is 22. So shouldn't the 79,000 be a positive number there in terms of?
And I can definitely look into that and report back to you. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the key variance key drivers that are impacting the $384,000 variance, which, by the way, is a favorable number. Like I said in the beginning, that the budget as of April 30th, 2020, the trend is a favorable variance. So we are actually under budget than where we should have been.
Right, but this is a revenue line that we're at $80,000 on a revenue line, right?
Now, the other thing, if I may, what I said earlier is that a lot of our revenues and expenses, there's a likelihood haven't been recognized yet. This report is as of April 30th. We are in May, essentially the third week of May, and we are, like any other businesses or organization in this province or throughout the world, in fact, there are significant delays, whether it's processing financial information or any other information. There are significant delays that we're experiencing. So it very well could be that there are unrecognized revenues that will, in coming months or in coming weeks, we will have a much better view.
Okay, but there's something wrong with that record check line. I just want to make that comment.
And I will get back to the board and I will verify that number for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commentary for Nandini?
It's Ken. I have a question for Nandini. Can you go down to COVID-19, the line 11,001? MTC supplies. What is that? Is that specific stuff that as a result of COVID?
I don't know that information right now, but I can definitely get back to the board. I mean, this is a PDF document, so that limits my ability to drill back and see what that exactly is, but I can definitely follow up with an email.
Okay. The other question too, janitorial services. Is that on top of the normal janitorial services provided at the station?
Yeah, that would be my understanding too. Due to COVID-19, obviously there is a higher need to keep our environment sanitized, so there is an increased cost to that.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure, Mary, please.
Yes, I didn't receive the financial statements because whatever was done this morning, I'm not receiving any emails on either my own email or on the OPS email. So I haven't seen any of these that you're talking about. So maybe in the next day or so, I might get something. I just don't know how to go about doing that.
We have someone from IT listening to your every word, so we'll get them to you. If Dan is hearing that, and we'll figure that out, Mary, and get this copy to you. I can forward it to you afterwards. I'm sorry that happened.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lost you, Todd.
Nothing at my end.
I can't hear him too.
No.
I heard a noise like a vehicle.
It looks like he could have frozen on his screen there, by the looks of it.
So I can talk to the budget, but you want to wait until Todd Taylor comes back?
I just texted him that we lost him, so hopefully he'll.
Everybody in Orangeville is watching the police board meeting online. That's why the internet's down.
Todd's back, is he? No?
No, not yet.
Oh. Maybe he's logging out to log back in.
Are we still live?
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks
I can
like
hear you on the phone.
Okay.
And yes, we're still live, and it looks like he did indeed do that. He logged out currently.
There we go.
Sorry, everybody, I'm back.
Okay.
This technology piece is fun. Was someone else chatting as I came back in? My apologies.
No, waiting for you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. The 384 that you referenced, Nandini.
Yeah.
Would it be reasonable to assume that you would sort of double that by the time you got to October? I know we're only 4 months, but 9 months out, would we assume we're 800,000 under? Completely unfair question.
Thank you for the question. Back to the chair. So I don't know whether we can double it or not, because it depends on whether some of the variables that has contributed to the variance, whether they exist. But I believe there are still some unrecognized revenues that are coming in, and I will let our deputy chief to speak to that. So by September, October, the timeline that you have given us, we will be recognizing more revenues. Now, having said that, if some of the vacancies that are still in place continues to be vacant, the third quarter of this year, then yes, there is a likelihood that we will see this trend continuing and having a larger variable variance.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Deputy Chief, did you want to add anything to that, or?
Yes, I did. We will be receiving another $45,000 for the civil remedies grant. However, most of that's going to go out to help the family transition place get their update their video out front of the building. So we did that in partnership with them. We just received today, actually, the next installment of the CSP grant. So that's another $30,000. As well, on this, in this budget, it doesn't include the court grant as well. So we should be looking forward to getting an installment, I think, in the beginning of May. So, so that should be showing up as well. So, and when you talk about the COVID lines, if you notice, most of those COVID lines don't have any numbers in them. That is that we haven't figured out what the actual expenses are so far when it comes to COVID. So that will be adjusted accordingly as the bills come in. So that's all that I have to say.
That's great. Thank you. Any other comments from fellow board members? No? Okay. Nandini, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Well, happy birthday.
You got happy birthday on the back of your TV there.
Oh, yeah,
That was
I
a
should
few
take
days
that. I definitely should take that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. And if you could, would you just follow up through email with the board on that one
Yes.
question that Member Brown had? That'd be great. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for your
having
time. Okay, appreciate it. Okay, we have a motion to receive the financials from the board.
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Mary.
second it.
Thank you, Member Brown. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's great. So this next item, and maybe I'll look for a bit of direction. There was some items enclosed that we ran out of time, and I was thinking I would give a little bit of background, and then we were going to have a rise and report on that in open session. Any advice from the board on how you'd like to handle 6.2, knowing that information? Should we move on, or do you want to forge ahead with it? Ian?
Todd, is there anything particularly sensitive about what you were going to raise and close? Is this the project?
It is.
I mean,
Should we? I was gonna say, should we defer it till the next meeting? We'll talk about it
No.
today.
No, it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
So maybe on that
Yeah.
realm, then I'll just go ahead and I'll describe the situation to you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you may
Yes.
recall that we had this debate. It was closed or it was on the cusp, so I'm fine with it in public.
So I'm feeling the same way. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your help. So this item 6.2, there was an email summary sent to us by Karen Landry, who's the clerk. And the history behind this is, we've determined as a town that we're moving towards disbandment of the Orangeville Police Service. And with that, there is documentation that is at the police station you can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So there is documentation at the police station from history of the Police Services Board that goes back quite a long ways. There's 15 boxes of information sitting there, and the deputy chief has informed me that we need to get those out because there's some other renovations that are happening to the police station, and there isn't room to keep them in there at this time. So how will we go about it and have those removed and move forward? And essentially, speaking with Karen Landry, who is our clerk, she has referenced that basically these boxes will need to be determine what's in them and marked so that we have a history of what they are. And you can read Karen Landry's official response of exactly what needs to be done. Ms. Landry has suggested that there isn't anyone on town staff to do that at this time. And it is also outside of the job description of the board secretary to do that. We have had discussions internally with our board secretary, and she has offered to do that. But what we needed to determine is how would we pay that, because it's outside of the realm of the job description. And so what Ms. Landry did for us was she went ahead and looked at what would the pay rate be for someone who would do this work on the town grid. And that dollar amount by memory here is $26.22 an hour. And that, I guess what I'm putting forward is that we as a board employ the board secretary to document these boxes and officially hand them off to town hall. And if the public is listening, why this is important is there's 15 boxes, it's quite a bit of room to take up. They need to be digitized and documented so people will be able to find them. So anyway, I'm looking for the board to approve us to hire our secretary outside of her normal roles to have these boxes documented.
I would move that.
Do we, before we do that, do we have an estimate of the time here?
So we do not have an estimate of the time, Member Brown. We could know that once we instruct our secretary to do the first box. This was Ms. Landry's suggestion, is that she would have a very good determination of what that timeline would be if she could get her hands on that first box and instruct our secretary on the process how to do that. And then she would have an estimate for us on what that would be. But I do not know Is it 20 hours? Is it 30 hours? I don't know that at this point, but we need to get the first box out of the police station and either to our secretary's office or to town hall and have Ms. Landry and Carrie work together on what this project could be. Ian, would you, Member McSweeney, would you have anything further to add to the way I've described that might be helpful, or do you think I've succinctly, have I done that?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, we're operating under our records retention bylaw, which applies to the OPS, the service itself, as well as the board. So I mean, this is something that needs to be done. These boxes, these 15 boxes are labeled on the outside chronologically. From what I've seen of them, there's a bit of a jumble inside, but I don't think it should. I don't think there should be anything unexpected when they're opened up and organized properly.
I went through them just as more information. I thought they were quite well organized. I don't think it's going to be a huge task, but I've not done the work before, so I couldn't speak to the timeline.
Could we make that motion maybe with a topside expense of $1,000 before it get revisited? That would give about 35 hours.
I think that's very reasonable, and then we could come back to the board because, you know, we would have more of an idea next month, right?
Yeah. That sound reasonable, Carrie?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Member Rose gave a motion there.
Yes, so I would approve that.
Yeah.
Do a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment to top
Yes.
$5,000 expense, Member Rose?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I will second that.
That's great. Thank you, Member Brown. All in favor?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so that brings us on to
One further item. I think it'd be interesting, Carrie, if you could follow through with us after you get through the first box and just give an email to the board.
Certainly.
Let us know how you're making out, and then we'll. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I will do that. Thank you.
You know, Member Brown, you just jogged my memory as well. There is things that are the property of Orangeville that, essentially an organization is ceasing to exist, and that is the Orangeville Police Service. And those records too, at some point, we're going to have to work with Ms. Landry to understand how that process will work, because that information will have to go to town hall as well, because our new group, although they'll be plugged into it, they won't require those records, but we'll need to keep them. So there's something else coming down the pike. We're not there yet as a group, but just something else for everybody to be aware of.
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we were going to have a further discussion about that in closed. I'm content to do that on the bylaw itself.
For sure. On 6.2.
Back in 5.
I'm sorry, Member McSweeney, are you referring to 6.2?
No, I was referring to 5.5, which we were interrupted in getting to, and which we're going to revisit when we return to close.
Right. Perfect. Agreed. Thank you for that. So we are on to 6.3. And 6.3 is special meetings and assigned work. It's remuneration. And for those watching, there is things that board members would be involved in outside of regular board meetings that monies could be given for the completion of these projects. And within that, whenever you're paying taxpayers money, we all have a responsibility to be as open and as transparent as possible regarding the remittance of payment. So the board has gone through and worked on a policy to describe how payments will be issued and what the role of the board will be in those policies. So I guess on 6.3.1 and 6.3.2, one is a description of them, and the other one is a list of current items that are outstanding. And I'm wondering if Member McSweeney, you would like to speak to 6.31 and 6.32, please.
Yes, thank you. So if everyone can turn to 6.3. You'll see during the course of looking at this, sort of always looking at our policy, which we passed on March 1st, and which I'm proposing be further amended. What came to mind when we were looking at and trying to make a list of the kinds of expenses that will be put before the board for approval today, it struck me that our policy needs to make clear that if we're dealing with things other than special meetings, sometimes things come up and work gets performed before the board actually approves that assignment. And so just to be completely clear, we wanted to make sure that the board had the authority to approve claims for payment of those work assignments, even though the work had already been done, as long as the board is content that work be an approved assignment, of course. So if you look at section 2, the wording that is on the track change, the revision, that's what that's intended to. And with one modification after the word performed, I would say in whole or in part. So that's the additional revision that I would make to that. But this revised policy will then allow you to approve things that are not only projects that we want to be done in the future, but also if things come up from time to time in the past and members work on them and are going to submit claims for them, that the board has to say, yeah, that makes sense. We will approve it retrospectively. And the other thing that you'll see that I did is while we were amending the policy, I went ahead and added the semi-annual report as a form attached to the policy in section 9. So nothing new there, but we put it in all these expenses being tallied and submitted to the board. And so while I was revising the policy, I might as well add a template of that semi-annual report to the policy. So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take questions from members on 6.3.
6.31, are you?
On item 4.
Okay. I have a question.
I'm
Yes,
happy to
please,
go on.
Brown.
I'm happy to go on and talk about that. I think this is the first issue, whether we amend our policy this way.
Yes, Member Brown.
The only, I think, thank you, Ian, for doing all this work. I think it's great. Really appreciate everything you've done here. I was curious, the words semi-annual. I mean, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So how are we going to go back and revisit something that happened 5 months ago and verify it? I'm wondering if we need to tighten that timeline up to quarterly, perhaps. I don't know. It just semi-annual seems, and again, it was just a recap, I know, of what you've done, but going forward, should we be approving this either on a monthly or quarterly basis?
We can do monthly, we can do quarterly. The idea behind this template is that as expenses come in and are submitted and approved, then the board secretary will keep a running total on this form. So we can call for a review of it any time.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I have a quick question.
If the board feels that they want to formalize a more frequent submission to whether it's monthly or quarterly, we can certainly do that. by a modification to the policy.
What I like this, board members, is if there was ever someone who think, you know, not in a benevolent way, and it was being challenged, you're not just challenging, and as an example, you're not just challenging Member Brown, you're actually challenging the entire board, because Member Brown submitted his expense and 5 people, including Member Brown, approved it in an open forum. And I think that's right. And conversely to that, if Member Brown submits an expense and the board on balance disagrees with that expense, then the expense will be denied and won't be paid. You know, and I think that's right too. So it makes me feel good about a process, you know, and obviously being accountable to the taxpayers of Orangeville.
I like the running,
one further nuance of that is that if Member Brown actually does in advance, it can't be claimed or paid until the board approves it as an approved assigned work. Then once that happens, the claim is submitted at the next meeting. So there's a real structured discipline here.
right. Can I speak, Chair Taylor?
Yes, please, Member Brown.
I like the running tally idea. I like the continuing spreadsheet that the secretary can, because we can then look back historically and see, for instance, you and Vice Chair McSweeney, Chair Taylor, are currently embroiled in some HR issues, and you are noting them there. So we have a chance to identify the exact cost for each of these various issues that you're dealing with. So I like the transparency of it, and I like the running total. But I think we should probably look at it as part of our monthly fiscal review that we were talking about earlier tonight.
If I may, Member Brown, I agree, but just as clarification, that fiscal review would be done in closed session, and then we would rise and report in open. Is that what you're suggesting? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. I just want to make sure that I want everybody to see what we're doing. That's all.
Yeah.
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 And I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please, Member Rose.
It was just about, I noticed throughout the whole thing, and I think it's fine, was that it was going to be the job of the board secretary. So was this in her job description when she was hired, or is this another job?
I believe it was there. But Carrie, what would you say to that? Is that?
I honestly didn't put my mind to that, but I do think it would be to keep reports, and I do think it is within my description. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If we do the math on Carrie's salary, she's to put in somewhere in the order of 40 hours based on the $26 an hour that Karen manages, 40 to 50 hours. So I guess, Carrie, you'll have to let us know if that starts to stretch you.
I will.
It's not fair to you, so we'll certainly listen to you in the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
I have a question, Chair.
Sure.
Ian, in number 9, it says the board secretary shall use, this is your addendum, board secretary shall use the attached template in preparing the report, which template may be revised from time to time by the chair and vice chair on written notice to the board. Could we replace on written notice with on approval by the board? So if the chair and vice chair make a modification, it has to go to the board for approval, not just being told it's being changed.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Member McSweeney, are you?
Put that in there. I'm happy to do that. I put that in there in the interest of expediency. And the discipline is that it's got to be the chair and the vice chair, and the board's going to know about it. And if they don't like it, they can object. But yeah, I mean, we meet enough. I don't think it matters much. I think we can treat this, any change, just like any other amendment to the policy, one that has to be blessed by the board. So I can do that.
Okay,
No further questions. Thank you.
that's
you.
great. Could I have a motion then on this item if we're all done with discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Member Rose, Member Brown, all in favor?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Member McSweeney, are you able to speak to 6.3.2?
Before we leave this, so we just approved a revised policy subject to further revision, and left it up to me to be the wordsmith of. I'm fine to do that. So what I will do is I will change the policy. I will circulate it to the board members, and that can stand as the final version unless there's an objection.
I am fine with that. Is there
Otherwise,
any
we're going to have to put.
objections?
Nope, good,
No.
good for me.
That's fine.
So, Member McSweeney, so I apologize. Are you going to speak to
You're breaking up.
2 of 6? I'm breaking up.
Yes.
Yeah, you broke up, Todd.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
So you
We'll
want
try
me to
one more.
speak?
technology's wonderful.
You want me to speak to 6.3.2?
Yes.
Is that right? 6. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the members will recall that the protocol established under the policy is for the board secretary to prepare and submit claims with respect to special meeting attendances on behalf of board, but that where the claim is being submitted for an approved work assignment, other than attendance at a special meeting, it's up to the individual to submit a form to the board secretary so that form can then be put on a board agenda for approval. And I think, I'm not sure whether anybody other than Todd and I at this point anyway have been submitting claims with respect to assigned work as opposed to special meetings. But just in case, Carrie has included in the, and Carrie, maybe you can, if you haven't already, circulate the claim to members if in the future they need to submit a claim.
Yes, I will do that. I sent an email to that effect earlier this afternoon.
Easier than pulling it off the back of the policy.
Right.
So, so for special meetings, board members, you can just assume that Carrie will prepare the claims for you, circulate them for signature, and then they'll be put on the next board agenda. For other assigned work, and we have examples of it in the chart that was included in the board. This is a perfect example of the retroactive nature of our current policy and why it's helpful. Todd and I and Carrie have been doing a number of things related to HR issues, CBA negotiations and the like that represents work other than at special meetings. Those work claims are all summarized from March 24th forward to May 19th today in the chart that Carrie has provided for in the material. I'm happy to go through them line by line, but they're pretty much self-explanatory. the description of the meeting on each day, the date of the activity, and the amount claimed, one claim per 24-hour period in accordance with the policy. Some of that's, all of that relates to work assignments that we're asking the board to approve today's meeting. And if approval is given by the board, then for the next meeting, Carrie will submit actual written claim forms that Todd and I and Carrie have signed to put before the board for actual payment. So the exercise today is just to sort of look at the kinds of activities that Todd and Carrie and I have been doing and make sure the board is satisfied that those are the kinds of activities that we should be submitting claims for. If there's anything there that the board does not want to approve as an assigned work, then we won't submit claim. And the second kick at the can is the claims will be submitted next time, so you'll get to look at the claims and consider them as individual claims. I think that's it might seem like overkill, but I think that's the discipline, that's the structure that policy imposes.
Yeah, well done.
Would anyone
good.
like to speak to that? Thank you, Mary. Would anybody else like to speak to that?
No.
I just had one thing, if I could, and as an add-on, it's such a funny thing being an elected official in your town in which you live. Like it's just so important to me that everybody understands exactly what we're doing. Sandy, I know we've had discussions about this before and you feel the same way. Initially, I was thinking that I shouldn't be putting any of this through. And then it became clear to me in the tasks that we were doing that I actually had to document my activities for the board. And, you know, you'll see as we go through a negotiation or items that we discuss that were at the police station that need to be moved that are property of the town. It's just, they're all such sensitive things. It feels like, well, who is doing that and when were you doing it? And there isn't meeting minutes taken of these outside items because they're not formal meetings in that way. They're tasks that are being completed. And if we don't do this, there's no follow through. There's no documentation of the actions that were taken. So I've come around to that way of thinking, and that's how, you know, I've arrived at this point with Member McSweeney. Okay,
Good.
so no commentary on that. So for 6.32, I'm not sure there's anything to pass there, is there, Member McSweeney? 631 is something to pass.
I think the board. I think yes. 631 is the revised policy. 632, though, I think what we're asking the board to do is to approve the activities that the members are engaged in to be claimed with individual claim forms at the next meeting.
I will make that.
In other words, okay. I mean, I'm happy to further explain it, but the policy contemplates payment for special meetings, payment for approved assignment.
I think, Member McSweeney, if I may, I think you've described it very well. So I think we have a motion from Member Rose to pass. If I'm reading it right, I think Member Brown wants to second that. So
Yes.
Is that correct? Yes.
It's fine.
So why don't we call for all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And Ian, I just didn't hear you. Are you okay with that? Yes. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So that's 6.32. And that would push us on to item 7, which is any motions developed in closed session, of which there is none to rise and report on at this time. So we pass 7 and on to 8, which is adoption of the previous board meeting minutes. And just before we do this, I see on 8.1 that I have 43. And Carrie, if I could just defer to you for a second, did we get 8.2 and maybe a status update on 8.3?
Certainly. So 8.2, I'm going to ask that it be approved of at the next meeting for the minutes from April.
Okay.
I'm going to ask for that. 8.3, those were the hand notes that we discussed at our last meeting in April that had no date or anything put on them. I have since spoken to the author of those notes and received a possible date that those minutes were taken from a possible June meeting. It's going to take some further investigating as opposed to match it up to the proper agenda and such. So I've started to type them out and transcribe them. However, they're not making sense once I type them out. They're shorthanded notes, you know, in somebody else's mind that has taken them. So for me to even type them out when I did begin to do that, it still didn't really make sense it won't make sense to anybody. So it is required to further investigate with an agenda, I think in June of 2019. So I can look into that further and then report back on at the meeting in June if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Just as a thought for the board members, and I know the board will have to weigh in on this as well, but this has been an ongoing issue for quite some time. My suggestion is we see what Carrie can do with this, and at the June meeting, we really just need to move on. Either we have them or we don't, and move on. And if you're watching this live and wondering what we're talking about, we went through some personnel changes at the time, and there was some notes taken, and in the transition, these notes have become difficult to understand, and that's where we're at. So I personally would appreciate it, Carrie, if you could do that. Any other board members have comment on this issue?
Nope.
Nope.
I'm referring to no. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it's Ian. It's McSweeney. I am happy to, once Carrie has prepared that transcript, I'm happy to try to work with her, review my notes of whatever meeting we think it is, and try to make some sense of those notes so to report back to the board next time.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we will defer 8.2 and 8.3, but that brings us back to 8.1, which is on page 43 of the agenda. Could I have a motion to receive, or is there any comments on these meeting minutes?
So moved.
Member Rose, second. Member Brown.
I'm okay, Todd, but I just got a question. In 4.5 on page 47, it has some identifiable individuals. Should they be blacked out if this goes public? 4.5. It actually lists the name of the person.
What page are you on there, Ken?
I'm looking at page 47.
Okay.
Page 47.
4.5.
Yeah.
I think that's a good catch.
Yeah.
If we can just black it out, or if just put the language from an identifiable individual with legal in that.
I think that's a great catch. Thank you, Ken.
Was that 4.5 and 4.6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are closed minutes, aren't they?
I thought they're open minutes.
I think that whole minute.
So it's adjourned to in-camera meeting at 4:06. So those are closed meeting minutes.
Okay. And then it goes down. Or maybe
should not be just.
Yeah, or
I think it's important that we.
Sorry, it says on number 7 on page 48, the meeting adjourned at 5:49.
Yeah, so we didn't come out of close then, is that what you're saying?
I unless we identify it.
Yeah, I think that whole meeting was a closed meeting. It started in open, then popped into closed immediately. So I would treat that as closed minutes,
Okay.
all of it.
So maybe a suggestion moving forward, if it's closed, we put on the thing saying closed. Orangeville Police Services Board closed minutes or open minutes to help clarify confusion like this again.
I agree with that. And Carrie, remember when we're putting these, attaching minutes to meetings, we're going to color code the closed minutes so they're
Great.
Good.
I will do that in the future. However, March was sent to me from a previous secretary, so I was not privy to what they were supposed to be approved of in April, and they weren't. So that's why they were added on to today's agenda. I did not know that they were a closed meeting. So
is this out in the public sphere right now?
That's my concern.
Has it been published, this agenda, anywhere publicly?
if I could just speak, when I post the agenda to the website, there are no supporting documentation when I post it. It is all just the 5 pages of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So it's not out floating around somewhere.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a step behind everybody. This is Ian was absolutely correct. This is the entire closed meeting from that particular date. So yes, so none of this should be for public. And if you're watching this or wondering, again, it has what we're referring to is it has names in here that would be private to the board, and those individuals should not have their names brought forward in public, and that's why we're talking in this way. It's a great catch, Ken. I appreciate that. So that brings us on to, so we've approved 8.1. Did we do that? My apologies. Yes, we're good.
Yes.
8.2 we've deferred. 8.3 we've deferred. Which brings us on to item 9, which is a verbal update from the very wonderful Carrie Wallace.
All I have to report is that our fees have been invoiced to us, which I'll put, or they're in the process of being invoiced. I've submitted all of our information so that our fees can be submitted. I will put that on the agenda for next month for that to be approved. And going forward, there is a general meeting that I believe Vice Chair McSweeney will be attending on May 29th. And that's all I have for that.
If I may, Carrie.
Yes, I will.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Member McSweeney, go ahead.
Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to ask about payment for that. We've been trying to figure out, board members, about a credit card for Carrie, and for the public, why that would be important is just items come up that the secretary would have to pay for and charge member associations, that sort of thing. And we'd kind of worked it into a corner, and I was just curious if you had that resolved, or you, to your satisfaction, are we there, or is there still another step that needs to be taken? By the look on your face, I guess you're saying we're not quite there. Okay.
I don't know what upcoming fees we are going to have. However, the association has been kind enough to just invoice us. So there didn't need to be that immediate rush payment via credit card or anything like that. So we were fine with this. However, if things do come up in the future, I'm not so sure people will be inclined to invoice, as opposed to, you know, if I'm not even sure, like certain meetings or whatnot that board members may attend. I do believe that those payments should be made in a timely manner. I'm not sure, but then again, it should be approved of by the board before it gets paid anyways. So maybe an invoice is the way to go. So I have no problems with it right now, the way it is. And like I said, people have been gracious enough just to invoice us.
Okay, I'll close that loop and I will come back to yourself and the board on that. I was close and it just I lost where we were with that, so I appreciate it. Okay, so any questions for Carrie on item 192? Yes, Member McSweeney.
Mr. Chair, it's Ian. Yeah, so there's no doubt that they should be invoiced, just like any other payment. They should be invoiced, approved by the board, and then paid. The method of payment is something that I know you're following up on.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention with respect to the association AGM is that one of the main things on that agenda for the AGM on the 29th is the election of Section 10 board representatives to the. I asked the question because I was curious, since we are in transition from a Section 31 to a Section 10 board, the extent to which, we would be allowed to, revisit our appointment as a Section 10 board mid-year, and the answer was no. So we will transition, and then at the next AGM, I think we'll be able to participate in a Section 10 vote.
Perfect. Okay, I think we just need a motion to receive. There isn't anything to do, so could I have a motion to receive that information from Carrie?
I'll move.
Thank you, Ken.
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Rose. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
That's great. Thank you. So at this point, we are 6 minutes over for meeting our 6 p.m. deadline. So if I may, as a little break, Dan in IT is on the line with us. And Dan, I'm wondering if there's anything from the public at this time.
Nobody has called in, and I'm not seeing anything currently.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. So that skips over question period.
I think, Todd, some people might have called in but seen your hair and then immediately hung up.
It's a rough day. Thank you for that. So I'm completely thrown off now with the hair goes. So question period, we're good. Presentations, seeing none. We'll pass on. Delegations, seeing none. Public correspondence. I know there's going to be some things with the deputy chief when we get up here, but so I think that puts us on to public reports. And just very privately, Chief Kalinsky has some things going on in his life today, and unfortunately he's not able to be here with us. So just wanted to wish him and his family all the best on this day. And Deputy Chief Guilfoy, if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I am reporting on the final conclusion of an SIU that was concluded back in May. So this is the recommendation that the board receives this report. There's no financial implications relating to the recommendations contained within the report. So the background of this report is that on June 1st, 2019, a female was arrested on an outstanding bench warrant and was transported to the Orangeville Police Station, where she was lodged in the cells pending the outcome of her warrant. During the course of her time in custody, she removed and ingested an unknown quantity of drugs that had been secreted in a cavity in her body. Police immediately contacted the County of Dufferin Paramedic Services, at which time she was transported to Headwaters Healthcare Center for assessment and treatment. On June 2nd, the next morning, the Orangeville Police contacted the SIU after providing the details of the event. The SIU decided not to invoke their mandate. And just so you know, it also included a video of the cell and the booking video. So on June 10th, Orangeville Police were informed that the SIU would now be invoking their mandate and conducting a criminal investigation into the circumstances involving the prisoner's injuries. The SIU focused on 3 sections of the criminal code. Section 215 of the criminal code is failure to provide the necessities. Sections 219 and 221 of the criminal code are criminal negligence and criminal negligence causing bodily harm. As the offenses of penal negligence, liability for both under both provisions is predicated in part on conduct that amounts to a marked departure of the level of care that a reasonable person would have observed in these circumstances. The SIU did examine the actions of all involved parties, including the search of the prisoner, the police authorities to conduct the search, the level of search, and by that I mean whether it was a frisk, pat down, or a strip search, the level of care received by both parties that were in custody at the time. There was more than one party in custody, and the police response to the prisoner's ingestion of the drugs. So officers were challenged with forming the reasonable and probable grounds to believe that it's necessary in the circumstances to conduct a strip search of the prisoner. So R versus Golden is a case law from the Supreme Court of Canada that sets out how strip searches are to be conducted. They have to be justified in law, they have to be reasonable on their face, and they have to be performed in a manner that is respectful. So the SIU was not persuaded that the officers had sufficient basis to conduct a strip search or a body cavity search, or if they had, that they had exercised their discretion to unreasonably refrain from performing such a search. So R and PG, which is reasonable probable grounds, is the discretion of an officer, and articulation of the fact is required to take it to the next level. So the record establishes that the prisoner was monitored closely throughout her time in the police cell. The special constable conducted regular physical checks and was quick to spot that the prisoner was licking a plastic bag in the cells, whereupon he went to inquire what she had done and was told that she had consumed an unknown quantity of cocaine. The SIU described the special constable's action in response to the drug ingestion as not acting with alacrity, nor did he sit on his hands either, concluding that the level of diligence was apparent on the part of the officers and as they considered their options in dealing with the prisoner. The SIU was unable to find fault with the constable's decision to transport the prisoner to the station rather than the hospital. The SIU were also unable to reasonably conclude that the constable or other officers who dealt with the prisoner transgressed the limits of care as prescribed by the criminal law. Subsequently, there is no basis for proceeding with any criminal charges against any one or more police officer. So this now concludes the SIU investigation involving the Orangeville Police Service.
Okay, any questions for the Deputy Chief on that?
No.
Yes, I have one. Yep, go ahead.
Yes, Member Brown, please go ahead.
Is there any other legal proceedings been instituted or started here at all?
So we are in the midst of the Section 11, so that which is the Chief's organizational review. So the Chief looks at the conduct of the officer, the policies and procedures of the service, and how we do things as a service, that we are effective in doing what we do. So that will be going forward. We have made some changes in regards to how we book in prisoners, how we watch them. We've moved the officer that watches prisoners right to the cells. If they work in the cell area, as long as there's a cell, someone in the cells, prisoners in the cells, then they are right there. They can hear everything that's going on. As well, we have a new search procedure. We have a new booking and prisoner control procedure as well. We are going to do some more training on searching of prisoners, but that won't be until the COVID-19 pandemic is dealt with, and that we're cleared to do a group kind of training.
Right. But no other civil proceedings have been started as a result of this incident.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Deputy Chief? I have one, Deputy Chief. I always find it interesting, in police reports, the use of the English language and just words that are used. And I'm just curious, the description of Special Constable Fry's actions. Basically, it talks to that he wasn't operating in a prompt fashion. Essentially, it's he wasn't brisk, he wasn't ready. That's how I read that. Is that part of your review?
Yeah, so that was looked at as well. That is the language of the SIU, but certain people take, they may take a little longer based on their experience, what they know, what they don't know. It's easy for us to say, oh, we know that she took drugs, but it's hard to say how much drugs and how that's going to affect her. During the circumstance, he did not know how much she had consumed, and if at all. And so all he knew was that she was licking a piece of cellophane that may have had some kind of drug on it. So his decision making may not have been as quick as someone who's got a lot more experience, but he did make the right decision and called the ambulance.
I understand. I guess as a board member, I'm always very aware of the fact that I do not A, have the knowledge, or B, have the authority over operations. So with that as an understanding, I completely get that as I'm trying to position myself here. I just find that statement confusing. He did take the situation in a brisk, cheerful, ready way, but he didn't sit on his hands either. It's just, it's a strange way of saying he was ambivalent, but eventually moved, is the way I kind of read that. I don't know. Is there an investigation into those words then? It's a strange way to describe something, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
So I think, don't forget when the investigator is looking at a video of something that's happening, he has an overview of what he sees. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person that is acting in the moment knows what the video is playing. So the video is not something that can be reviewed by the officer at the time. It's something that it doesn't, they can't back it up and go, oh, holy cow, what did she just ingest? It's something that it continues. So when you look back, you say, well, I know that she took those drugs, but if he didn't see how much drugs she took, then he wouldn't know, right?
Yeah. So the SIU, if I may, so the SIU has said we're good here, which is great. That's a very positive thing. But what I think you're saying is that the chief and yourself are doing your own investigation and more to come.
So that's exactly right. We have to look at the totality of the situation in terms of, our policies and procedures. And did the officer, did the special constable at the time, was he trained well enough to know what to do in that situation? And those are things that we'll have to look at. So in that case, that's what the Section 11 will address.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear if that's something the board can know about. I'd be curious. Any other questions for the deputy chief?
So, Mr. Chair, just on your comment about the language, I mean, my translation of this is that everybody's allowed to be wrong. They're just not allowed to breach the standard of care. So that's really what it translates to for me.
Right.
It translates.
He was wrong, but
Yeah.
there was no breach of, taking into account all the circumstances, there was no breach of the standard that he was held to. Everybody gets to be wrong, but you can't be negligent or breach the standard of care.
And my understanding is the SIU is investigating criminal intent, and of course, there was no criminal intent here, period, right? But there may be some procedural improvements that can be made, and we've already started down that road. So thank you to Deputy Chief Guilfoy and Chief Kalinsky for, and I know Ian's been involved. I know you did talk about this, and there was some wording in our care of prisoner care that you were involved in. So thank you.
That's great. Okay, and Member McSweeney, I appreciate the way you're framing that. I just, again, the English language is a funny thing, so I just wanted to understand it. So we have a motion to receive that information from the Deputy Chief, 14.1.
So moved.
So, seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Item 14.2, and this will be from the Deputy Chief on page 52.
Hello again. Okay, so this is comments from the public, and we're recommending that the board receive the report. Again, there are no financial implications. And attached is an email received from Constable Scott Davis regarding excellent bail hearing brief that was prepared by Constable Hugh Brennan in regards to a break and enter. And then the second email was from a resident of Town Line thanking Constable Weil and Constable Mulligan for the successful conclusion of a drug investigation. And those are the two public comments that we received this month.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Thank you. Any questions for the deputy on 14.2?
No.
No?
Excellent job to the constables. I'll be happy to move.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. Can I have a seconder to that to receive? Can I have a seconder to Ken or no? Yeah. Thank you, Member McSweeney. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes. I'm sorry, Member McSweeney. Did you have something to speak to on 14.2?
No, I said aye. Oh, 14.2?
Yeah. So
Nope.
Sorry. Did you want to say something further, Member McSweeney, on 14.2? Did I cut you off?
Nope.
No. Okay. So we're on to item 15, and again, we are back to the very wonderful Carrie Wallace to discuss our website situation.
Okay, so as we know, last meeting was brought up that it was something that we should perhaps take a look at. I've done some initial investigation work with the website. It is currently affiliated with the Orangeville Police website.
It's not currently. Should we wait for Mr.
Yeah, why don't
Brown?
we just,
Yeah, I gotta go for a minute here, folks. The alarm at Town Hall is going off, and I've got Sergeant Brennan here at my door. I'm gonna go turn the alarm off. I'll be back in a couple minutes, okay?
it
Chair,
worked.
would you like me to continue, or do you want me to wait?
I feel like we can just go ahead here and we'll have this report.
Okay.
So we still have quorum.
So currently it is affiliated with the Orangeville Police website. It's not its own entity. It was created by Barking Dog Studios out of Guelph. It is a very bare bones website and it could really use some updating. Recently, Scott Davis has been gracious enough to assist with adding any content, any agenda minutes, any agendas for upcoming meetings. Him and I have had some lengthy training sessions to get me up to where I can actually go in and put in the content for the public. So now I have all the access codes and things of that nature so that I'm able to do that. With regards to moving forward to a new website, which is something that was brought up last meeting, I've been in touch with the owner of Barking Dog Studios, and he reported that there are no outstanding invoices that need to be paid for the website. If we were to segregate the board's website into its own identity, a new domain name would have to be purchased and content from our existing site moved over at a rate of $95 per hour. I'm not sure how long that will take. He said not very long, but I don't know what that means. So he has also sent me an analytics chart of the website. And this is looking at traffic flow, what members of the public would first go into the website to see if there's a lot of jumping around on the website and things like that. Personally, I don't know much about looking at an analytics chart for websites. I don't know much about that. So those numbers to me don't mean anything. It looks as though we had about 10,000 views on the website in February. And we're down a little bit in April to, I'd say, 7,500 approximately. And that's just my take on the chart that was given to me.
So Carrie, if I may, so we have 7,500 views in the previous month, 10,000 views on the OPS website.
On the board website.
I'm shocked at that. So there's 30,000 people in our town. Mm-hmm. So 1 out of 3 people are interested in a police services board item like that. That's significant if those numbers are correct. And I'm not challenging you.
No, that's totally fine. Like I said, that chart to me, that is what I took away from it. I can circulate it around to see if, for what you all take on it. I have to say I was not given a lot of clarity with the owner of the website. So it's just my assessment of it. And again, I'm not well versed in looking at analytics. Yeah. So going forward, I think it's just a matter of what the board wants in a website. If they in fact still want its own entity, as opposed to, say, a Facebook group.
Yeah. Member Brown, did you want to speak?
Yeah, sorry, I was out for 2 minutes there. Carrie, did you reach out to any other police service boards? Did you look at any other police service board websites? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Sorry, I did. And I've looked at some smaller communities such as Wellington County. I've looked at Guelph. I've looked at a few local ones. It's a very minimal, in my opinion, a very minimal website. It's just basically information such as we have, even though ours seems to be a little bit more outdated.
we do have things from, say, 2014 on there that I feel could be maybe sent into a retention file as opposed to keeping a current flow of information.
Carrie, have you followed up with Andrea McKinney at Town of Orangeville at all?
With regards to?
Well, Andrea McKinney's our general manager of corporate services. She's in the midst of completely reworking the Town of Orangeville's website and is very, very experienced and conversed in these matters. We've hired a company called eSolutions to prepare a new website for the town. And I'm just wondering, I think it would be a good thing if you spoke with Andrea and maybe got a little direction from Andrea. I mean,
Sure.
we want this to be standalone, I think.
Yes.
But there's no reason that a company like eSolution couldn't sort of tack this on to what they're doing right now for the town. So anyway, that's
okay.
that's
Well, that
opinion.
would be great. I will reach out to her.
Like
Sorry.
I think that the police service board website could be more than it is right now. I think there could be more interesting information there, safety tips, other things that the police are doing as well. But remember, we're about to step away from our police service here, and we're really going to be standalone. So what does the police service board want to put out there in terms of information over and above what the new police service might be doing? Just something we need to think about. But Barking Dog is some company that has done some work here for the town. Again, I don't want to disparage anybody, but the reason that the town is investing significant money is because we're not happy with the current situation. So, we need to upgrade.
I agree with Sandy, but I also think that we should do an RFP and hopefully get local businesses too. There's a lot of web companies locally who may be able to want to bid on our website. So once we set our parameters, we could do an RFP with these companies.
I think that's fair, Member Cricker. The only thing I want to just follow up on what the mayor is talking about is he's absolutely right. I mean, there might be an opportunity to just simply dovetail on the work that's already being done here and do it at a low cost. I think that's probably step one, and then I agree with you. And step two could be, do we go out? I would almost like to have the discussion with the public. Is a website really what we need moving forward, or is it just simply a Facebook page? But even then, to your point, Member Brown, the content has to be compelling and interesting. And I'm wondering, as a team, as a board, if we've even figured out what are we going to offer moving forward? What's going to be different? And,
I think archived agendas, archived minutes, and there's probably other information that we can post there that is of interest to the public, and so
yeah,
I do think we need a website rather than a Facebook page. I think there's just more depth potentially to the website. But I've been around these here parts for a little while now, and now also in the town hall. I can't think of anybody who's got more knowledge and experience in these matters than Andrea McKinney. So I would recommend either Chair Taylor or Carrie, to engage her and get some guidance and advice from her. I think she's a go-to on this matter. And I agree with
That's helpful. Helpful to know that for sure.
Member Krakar about RFP, and yes, it would be nice to hire somebody local, but if there's an easier way and a better way, then we need to find that out.
Wonderful. Carrie, do you have anything further you wanted to share on that?
Well, I did reach out to a local company, but I can defer that to another time.
We don't want to cut you off, and your good work might be interesting.
It's fine. I did reach out to Green Monkey. I had a telephone conversation. They had two options for us. Again, it is costly. However, it would mean purchasing a new domain name, migrating the current data. It would include higher end security. and updates, and it would also include a social media feed if that was the route the board wanted to go. So that is something I can report back on next month if you'd like, after I speak with Andrea.
Okay, I think many of us are familiar with Green Monkey, a local business, so very reputable. It'd be great to have our local police board with a local business, so that would be good too. So a couple good options there. Thank you to you both for that. Any other questions for Carrie?
No, thank you.
No. Okay. I guess we need a motion to receive. Well, actually, it's just information at this point. We haven't done anything, so why don't we move on to 16, which would be new business. Is there any new business that anyone would like to share tonight? No. Okay. Seeing none, as a thought to the board, there was that outstanding item. We could go back into closed and discussed. My feeling is we have the information that we need to move forward with it. I don't see a need to go into closed, but if someone else felt differently, I'm certainly open to entertaining that. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? It was item 5.
Sorry, what page, Todd?
It was item 5.5. And we ended up covering the majority of it in 6.2, which was the records transfer project. And I'm just being cognizant of the fact that people may want to have discussion about that in close, which is where it was originally set up for. Personally, I'm okay. I think we have what we need. We have the direction that we need. But if other board members feel differently, I'm happy to go into close.
I'm good.
I'd like to suggest, if you're talking about tabling this for future discussion, I'm okay with that as long as we put it on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. I think for now where we're at, Member McSweeney, we have the direction that we need to move forward.
Yeah. I just wanted to have a broader discussion about the records retention bylaw and some decisions that we have to start considering in relation to not only our own records, but the police service records. So that, but we don't have to do it now. We can do it next meeting.
And where would we do that? Is that in your mind? That's a closed item on the next agenda, correct?
I think so. We can report on it publicly, but I think it's a closed item.
Yes. Okay. That's great. So I think we're at Member Brown's favorite time. Did you want to make a motion, Member Brown?
Sure. A motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice to see everyone, and I think we did some good things here tonight. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.